Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last kind of 2 years or so, and I would say that this brewery are known mainly for their big kind of fruity sours, but in more recent times it's been the New England IPAs that they've been doing. But we're going to go back and have a look at one of the fruity sours for this review, and I'm quite curious to see how this one turns out because I've heard this is a pretty nice one. So for this review then, we will head up to a little place called Strömstad on the Swedish west coast, quite close to the Norwegian border, quite a famous fishing town and supposedly very beautiful, somewhere that I guess I need to go and visit. But that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Fermenterarna, and this will be review number 7 or 8 from these guys on the channel, if I remember rightly. So this particular beer is called Raspberry Masquerade. It comes in at 4.5% ABV, and this one is a fruited Gose, obviously a raspberry Gose. So yeah, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. This beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden, I believe for January of 2021. Don't quote me on that though, because at the moment I'm getting a little bit confused with all these different beers I have, because I do have a considerable stockpile of Swedish stuff that I'm trying to work my way through at the moment. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this was a January 2021 release actually. But as I say, I've heard this beer is pretty good. It's my first sour beer from these guys in quite a wee while. The last 3 reviews I've filmed from this brewery have been New England IPAs, and on that note I would recommend you try some of their New England IPAs. Very nice, very old school, and just really drinkable actually. But yeah, curious to see how this one turns out, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So let's get started then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fermenterarna before, and you will no doubt see a few more reviews from these guys in the fairly near future. I do keep an eye out on what these guys are releasing because I enjoy their beers. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Fermenterarna then, on to my brewery notes. So Fermenterarna, as I've told you already, are based in Strömstad on the Swedish west coast, Västra Götaland, quite close to the Norwegian border. But the company was founded by Niklas Aronson and Anna Claesson, who founded the company together back in 2018. But apparently the Niklas's journey with beer just was quite random actually. One day he was in a bar and he ordered a beer without really knowing what it was, and this turned out to be the Tropic Thunder from Gose Brewery, which I guess you could say is the kind of cult classic sour of the Swedish beer scene. Really nice beer that I recommend you try if you get the chance. One of the breweries, of course, Gose Breweries are one of the breweries that I would always recommend when it comes to Swedish craft beer. They've got some great stuff there. But Anna, on the other hand, had always really been interested in things that ferment, and she runs the Kostas Trädgårdar restaurant, which has fermented various things such as sauerkraut and sourdough bread and all of these kind of things in the past. But the brewery started out with a small 200-litre brew kit and tanks, and then in late 2018 they took a break to expand the company after their beers were received very well at the different festivals they attended. But they now boast a new facility and 2 500-litre brew kits and a total tank capacity of 17,000 litres, and they brewed about 50,000 litres over the course of 2019. But they say they have the equipment to brew 250,000 litres of beer per year. I wasn't able to find out if they'd expanded how much they brewed across 2020, the whole COVID-19 pandemic and things like that, but I'm sure they will expand a little bit more over 2021. Their beers have been proving quite popular, and they have been releasing more things through Systembolaget, so probably they did brew a little bit more in 2020 than they did through 2019. But according to Untappd, these guys have produced around 95 different kinds of beer as of February 2021 when I'm filming this review for you. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, these guys are really known for their kind of fruity, sour beers, the Berliner Weisses, the Goses and stuff like this. And in more recent times, they've been brewing a few New England IPAs as well. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fermenterarna for the moment. Hopefully we can expand that history at some point in the near future. As I say, I keep an eye out for all the beers that these guys are releasing because I have enjoyed the ones I've had so far. But yeah, it would be cool to go and visit Strömstad, and if I do that, I'll try and make contact with these guys and see if we can do a Meet the Brewery segment with them for the channel. That would be really interesting actually. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can tell you. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself then. So yeah, as you can see, this one is a 440ml can. And it looks, you know, it's as always with Fermenterarna, you get some very nice artwork on these beers. They've got a very distinctive style of artwork actually, come to think of it. And, you know, I think, you know, it's just, I just think the cartoon side of things that you get on these is really nice. I really like the artwork on there. The first New England IPA I had from these guys, it was simply called IPA. And it was very simple, you know, just a big hop flower. But the artwork on these cans is really nice. I don't know if it is done by Anna or Niklas themselves actually, because there isn't an artist listed on here. But there you can see on the side of the can, this little kind of bubbling thing here, Fermenterarna. That is the brewery symbol, and you can see you always get this kind of data piece on the back of the cans as well. But yeah, 440ml can this. I think I would have paid about 40 Swedish kroners for this. The fruity sours tend not to be all that expensive, but yeah, about 40, as I say, I think 40 Swedish kroners, €4, maybe about £3.50 sterling, and maybe about $4.50 American, something like that. But yeah, 4.5% fruited Gose this one, and like I said, it was released as part of the Lokales Masquerade assortment through Systembolaget for January of 2021. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. It says it's best before the 1st of November 2021. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Should have said as well, gold top on the can, I never showed you that. But let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. I love raspberry and berry sours generally. Just sugar this up a little bit because the can has been in the fridge a little bit, so we'll just sugar it up and just check that we're getting everything out of this. You can see the head on this one is quite active, and again I think that's just because I've had this one. As I said to you in some of the other videos, I built up somewhat of a stockpile of Swedish beer just because I got delayed in my return to Sweden after Christmas and things. But yeah, we'll put some more of that in a little bit later on. I think we've got enough to take a look at the beer and do the aroma for the moment. But yeah, as you can see, this one looks very, very nice. If we shine the light through this, it's kind of as you'd expect for a raspberry sour beer. You can see there's a big solid just short of a 2-finger frothy head on there. You can see it's got a lovely little kind of pink tinge to it, but look at I'm sure the camera, we've got good enough quality on the camera here just to you know, just to show you the froth there. The froth on that beer is beautiful. You can see I've got a little screen that I can look at myself through on this new GoPro camera. It's pretty cool, so you can see that reflecting off the glass. But yeah, that is pretty nice, I have to say. In terms of colour, I would describe this beer as a lovely kind of is blood red maybe a right way to describe this one? Candy apple, you know, candy apple red, something like that, blood red. Maybe blood red's a little bit too dark. Maybe candy apple red is a nice colour for this one to describe it. But you can see the head is just kind of dissipating down a little bit. That's a nice level of head that we've got on it now, incidentally. But yeah, you can see the beer does have a good degree of haze to it. It's, you know, Goses have wheat in them, so that kind of makes sense. You know, a Gose beer. They used to basically ferment these in cellars, basically, and they were open top. They had a bit of salt in them. And yeah, the Gose, really interesting style of beer. There's not too many original Goses left in Germany, actually. I forget the name of the one that I reviewed maybe about 1.5 years ago, something like that. But yeah, Goses are quite hard to find in Germany, other than the new, more modern ones. But yeah, looks like a very, very nice beer, this one. But in terms of a, you know, a kind of fruited Gose sour, this is the kind of appearance you're going to get from them. But they're always lovely big bright colours that usually correspond to the different fruits that are in the beers. But yeah, certainly looks the part for a raspberry Gose, if you like. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. That does smell really nice. One of the things I've always said about these fruited Gose, you know, these kind of more modern fruited sour beers, I've always found the aromas of the Berliner Weisses and the fruited Goses to be very straight shooting, but they're just so nice. They're just really, really nice. To be honest with you, when it comes to sour beers, unless you're talking like, you know, some of the Lambic beers, or perhaps, you know, the Flanders Reds, the Rodenbachs and things like that, I don't find the sour beers to be overly complex in their aromas. They tend to be very straight shooting, these more modern sours, but the aromas that you get off them are just, you know, beautiful. They're very, very nice, you know, be it a kettle sour or be it more a kind of Berliner Weisse Gose type thing. But this is really, really nice. It's a lovely, lovely smelling beer, this one. So straight away with this beer, you can smell that sort of nice kind of creamy and wheaty base to the beer. I don't think this one has oats in it. I'm sure this one's just wheat. Yeah, just barley and wheat malt in this one. But yeah, straight away with this beer, you can smell that lovely kind of soft, pardon me, white bready backbone to it, which is great. I mean, it's got a lovely, just kind of soft, you know, it's got a lovely just soft. It almost smells like it's kind of got a yogurty backbone to it. A lot of these Goses and Berliner Weisses remind me of the likes of, you know, the Petit Filou, the little kind of fruity yogurts. That's what this beer really reminds me of in its overall aroma. Yeah, lovely soft kind of wheaty white bread. You know, you don't get any bitiness off the wheat like you would in a New England IPA. It almost just smells like yogurty, slightly lactosey, you know, and it smells almost kind of creamy in a lot of ways. To be honest with you, other than that, I don't think there's too much to report in terms of the malt base here. Otherwise, as I say, a little bit kind of yogurty, a little bit kind of lactosey in a lot of ways, even though there's not lactose in the beer. And then you've also got a wee bit of a kind of softer white bready character to the beer as well, if you like. You know, if you take the aroma in really quite deeply, then you'll maybe get some, then you will get a little bit of, how would you say, you will get a little touch of bitiness off the wheat, but other than that, not a lot. In terms of hoppiness in this beer, it doesn't have hops listed as one of the ingredients. And you know, I find that this is an interesting thing. I was talking about this recently with some of the other beer tubers. Vault City, a really up-and-coming Scottish sour beer brewery, they still put hops in a lot of their sour beers, and to be honest, I think adding hops into the beers like this just gives them a little bit more depth. But I've noticed that in Scandinavia, a lot of the breweries that are doing these kind of big juicy fruity sours don't put hops in them, and it's interesting actually, because it gives, you know, as I say, I think putting hops in these beers gives them just a little bit more depth of flavour. Whereas I don't think there's anything wrong with, at the same time, I don't think there's anything really wrong with not putting the hops in them. It's just a different kind of approach, if you like. So yeah, in this one, you do still get the impression of, you actually do still get the impression of a little bit of a green component in the beer. There's a little bit of, I say, you know, you can smell a little bit of a kind of grassy brightness to the beer. There's a wee bit of a floral character to it as well. But as I say, there's no hops in it. So maybe that's a wee bit of a placebo effect, to be honest with you. But yeah, the aroma of this beer, as I say, is lovely. So yeah, we've covered the kind of green component, if you like. Let's focus on the fruity side of things. So obviously, you're going to get a lot of raspberry out of this one. You can get a little bit of the tartness of the raspberry, but I actually, you know, I've always found that Scottish raspberries, I think it's very hard to, you know, to beat the Scottish raspberries in terms of the tart aroma and tart flavours that you get from them. The Swedish raspberries, I've always found, are a little bit more kind of juicy in a sense, actually. So yeah, that's about the Lingen. I think the Swedish lingonberries probably are more, the sort of level of tartness you get in the lingonberries in Sweden is probably akin to what you get in the Scottish raspberries. But yeah, I mean, the juiciness of the fruit you get in here, lovely big kind of sharp raspberry sort of thing. You get a nice juicy backbone to the beer as well. You might get the impression of a few other fruits in here, like a little bit of a kind of juicy strawberry, or you know, a red currant or something like that. It doesn't smell as if it's just kind of straight up raspberries in a sense, but you quite often get that in these beers, and you know, the yeast will contribute to that, having the wheaty backbone there and the sort of yogurty type aromas. That's all going to contribute to this kind of thing. So yeah, it's got a lovely big, slightly sharp but lovely kind of juicy and rounded fruity aroma actually. So just take a little bit of time to mull that over as you you know, as you have a go at this beer. But yeah, the aroma of this one, as I say, it's really quite straight shooting, but it's worth taking a little bit of time to analyse it, and I think it's very, very nice. So yeah, nothing surprising about this beer when you know what style of beer it is. But yeah, I think it's pretty damn nice. So enjoy that for a little bit before you taste it. But that's what we're going to do now. We're going to have a taste of this beer. So this one is the Raspberry Masquerade, a 4.5% fruited Gose, raspberry Gose, from Fermenterarna in Strömstad, Västra Götaland on the Swedish west coast, quite close to the Norwegian border. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's very, very nice. That's a lovely beer, no doubt in my mind about that. There you can see it bubbling away. But I'm just going to say thumbs up to Fermenterarna once again. These guys are really doing some solid stuff at the moment. And I mean, relatively speaking, they are still quite a small brewery at the moment. But I mean, you've got quite a few breweries doing these kind of sour beers at the moment and doing them very well. Fermenterarna are one that I would always count. You've got the likes of Morgendagens are doing some really interesting stuff. Duck Pond, I've had some really interesting big kind of fruity sours like this as well. I'm trying to, you know, Brewski, of course. Brewski were probably the ones who, you know, did these big kind of thick fruity beers in the early days, although they were mainly fruity IPAs rather than the sort of Berliner Weisses and kind of sours like this. I've not actually tried too many of the Berliner Weisses and stuff from Brewski. That's something that I do need to fix, to be honest with you. I always tended to go for the IPAs and stuff when I'm ordering in the local orders. But yeah, Fermenterarna, they know what they're doing with the New England IPAs. They know what they're doing with these kind of big fruity Berliner Weisses and Goses and stuff like that. So if these are the kind of beers that you're into, this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out. And I can see this beer, since I poured the last little bit of it in, it has got, you know, distinctly more hazy. But you know, as I say, the beer had been in the fridge for a little bit. So yeah, it's lovely stuff this though. You're going to enjoy this beer if you get the chance to try it. And again, as I was saying, I find these big fruity sours very straight shooting, but they're just lovely, you know. I like beers that have got a bit of complexity and that make you think about what's going on with them. But you know, for me, these kind of sour beers, they just show you that sometimes simplicity is the best approach actually. So yeah, as I say, thumbs up to Fermenterarna once again. Let's try and just break down the flavour profile of this beer then. So straight away with this one, you can feel that nice kind of solid wheaty, you can feel that lovely big kind of solid, almost slightly creamy wheaty backbone in this one. I have to say, I would struggle with this beer to know that there's no oats in it, because it does, you know, the way that the wheat comes out in this beer, in the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate, it's just a solid kind of big, thick and very, very smooth sort of wheaty component. That blankets the middle and the back third of your tongue. And it's interesting because even in that border region between middle third and back third, there's not even like a little bit of a kind of bread crusty quality or anything like that. It's just a really kind of solid layer of smooth and slightly thicker wheaty qualities, and I really like that about the beer. In the middle third of the palate though, you will get the impression of a few kind of yogurty elements coming out of the beer. You know, that sort of petit filou yogurty type thing coming out of it, and I think that suits it. Like I say, I would struggle to recognise that this beer didn't have oats in it actually. It's it really just has a nice kind of big sort of thick and smooth creamy sort of thing. Although on that note, I wouldn't say this is the kind of thickest. I wouldn't say it's the sort of thickest of the Berliner Weisses that I've come across before. That's definitely a point to make about this one for sure. It's definitely not I'm saying Berliner Weisses, it's definitely not the thickest of Goses that I've come across before. So yeah, it's got a nice level of kind of thickness and creaminess to it, though. I think that's a fair point to say about this one. So yeah, the malt base in this one is very straight shooting, smooth wheat, that bit of a kind of yogurty sort of thing to it, and then you start to get around the kind of edges of it. It feels like, in the middle third of your palate, it almost feels like you've got a kind of arch, if you like coming from back forward. It almost feels like you've got a little bit of an arch, and it's towards the front half of that middle third of your palate that you get the more kind of salty elements of the Gose here, because the Gose always had a little bit of a kind of salty edge to it, and you definitely get that in this beer for sure. That comes out really nicely in this one, absolutely. The thing that I like about this as well is that it is actually quite drinkable, and that's the thing that really strikes me about Fermenterarna, is that their beers, they're not the thickest of beers, but they've got just, they really, Fermenterarna are almost experts at just getting the thickness of these beers right, so that it's got a nice body to it, but it's still got that element of drinkability. So that's exactly what I get with this one, because I've commented on that with the IPAs that I've reviewed recently, and you see the exact same thing in this sort of fruited sour beer. So I can certainly appreciate that about this one for sure. Again, this is it's just a very solidly executed beer. Absolutely. Yeah, but I think we've covered the malty side of things really, I think, as much as we need to in this beer. As I say, the saltiness just comes out a little bit more further forward on the kind of middle third of your tongue. Actually, I like how that goes together. So yeah, I do like how this goes together, absolutely. But yeah, on the sort of hoppy side of things, then in the back corners of the palate, I do get a teeny little bit of earthiness. On the front kind of corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a floral note there, and there's some really nice kind of grassy elements that come out of the beer as well. So yeah, I mean, as I say, this beer does not have hops in it. You can tell from the flavour. There's not really a bitterness to this one at all. So yeah, there's not really a hoppy note there, but there's still a little bit of that kind of placebo, grassy, floral kind of side of things that you would expect from this kind of beer. So that's an interesting point to note on it. It definitely gives you the impression of some kind of hoppy elements, if you like, and I like that about it. I do like having a little bit of kind of green in these sort of beers. But then yeah, the fruity side of things, again, is what you'd expect. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get the nice kind of fruity side of the beer coming out. When you add fruit into a beer, though, it always kind of comes out on the kind of front edge of the tongue and sort of suppresses a little bit of the green side of the hops. But obviously with this beer having no hops in it really, it's going to come out all across the kind of front third and the sides of the tongue, if you like. So there's a really nice little bit of a kind of how do you say, there's a very nice kind of sharper raspberry note to it in the beginning, but then the raspberries really kind of juicing up the further that you go into the aftertaste. So a little bit of sharp raspberry at the back, some nice big juicy raspberries, kind of so really nice juicy raspberries in the kind of on the front part of the tongue. I would say on the underneath kind of fruity part of the beer, on that front third of your tongue, you can feel it almost feels like it's a nice kind of very smooth oaty quality there. Obviously it's wheat because this beer doesn't have oats, but it does feel like just a really nice kind of smooth oaty sort of thing. But on the kind of front part of that front third of your tongue, you're going to get the impression of a very, like a very light kind of figgy quality. There's maybe a little bit of a kind of red currant-y, black currant-y sort of thing in there, just a little bit of that, but it's you get a little bit of the sharper raspberry notes at the back, and then a little bit of a kind of juicier raspberry on the front part of the tongue as well. So it's a really interesting concoction, this beer. It's absolutely, it really has some very, very interesting kind of elements to it, I have to say. So yeah, I certainly like how this beer goes together. Absolutely, it gets a big thumbs up from me in terms of its flavour profile. But yeah, we should move on from the flavour side of things. I don't think we need to say kind of much more about the flavour profile of the beer because it gives you everything you would want for this style. But in terms of the mouthfeel, I would describe this beer as being at kind of top end of mid-bodied. As I said, the thing with these Fermenterarna beers is the mouthfeel on these beers I find very interesting because it's got just the right level of thickness to it without being too thick. And that's one of the things I find with some of these kind of more modern sour beers. Some of them can be very, very thick and very oaty and things. And I do wonder if that's part of the reason why they haven't used oats in the malt base here, is just to keep the mouthfeel, you know, smooth. I think I would always describe the Fermenterarna beers as being, you know, they've got a nice fullness to them, but they're not thick, if that makes sense. That's how I would describe what Fermenterarna have. So they've managed to find a really nice balance here between giving you the thickness and stuff that you'd want of a modern fruited Gose beer, but at the same time the beer isn't too thick that it's not drinkable, if that makes sense, or it's not sessionable almost, if you like. For me, sour beers are tasting beers. I would never session sour beers, to be honest with you. I like tasting them on their own and appreciating them for what they are. But that's just me. Other people might disagree with that. But the overall feel of this beer, I would say top end to mid-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth, and I think it goes together really nicely. In terms of IBUs with this beer, I'd be surprised, probably technically speaking this beer doesn't have any IBUs, but I think it's impossible to have 0 IBU. It's probably got like 5 or something like this. But the malty base, as I say, lovely and smooth. It's got a bit of that kind of yogurty kind of thickness to it, and it develops a wee bit of sweetness the further that you go into the aftertaste as well. So I really like how that comes out of it as well. And then you've got some nice kind of fruity sharpness in the beginning, a little bit of fruity sourness, and then you've also got a kind of juicy, fruity character to the beer as well. So yeah, I think this is a really nicely executed sour beer, but that's kind of what I would expect of Fermenterarna. These guys are absolutely solid in what they're doing, and it's a Swedish brew that I would recommend you try. These guys are quite up and coming, and the quality of their New England IPAs is up there, with Stigberg's OO, 10 Hands, Apex, and these kind of guys, and their fruited sours for me are up there with the likes of Morgendagens, Duck Pond, some of the stuff that comes out from Omnipoyo as well. Obviously, they've got those like lassie beers that they have. The kind of qualities of sour beers that you're getting from these guys are up there. So yeah, for me, really solid brewery. I'd love to see a few more styles like black IPAs and West Coasters. Maybe a stout would be an interesting thing from these guys as well. So hopefully we can see some of that from this brewery over the next little while. But yeah, in the meantime, this was the Raspberry Masquerade, 4.5% Raspberry Gose. And it was pretty damn good, I have to say. So this one came to you from Fermenterarna in Strömstad on the Swedish west coast. Lovely beer, and a brewery that I think we should be watching out for over the next little while. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fermenterarna. We will return to these guys, I'm sure, over the next few months. But in the meantime, this was a really, really nice sour beer, and I hope that I can get a few more sour beers with different fruits in them. I'd love to see like a cloudberry or a lingonberry sour from these guys. If they can do a Gose with, some Swedish berries, I think that could be a very interesting thing for them. So yeah, let's leave it there. Slange, skull, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Fermenterarna, check out some of my other reviews, and I'll catch you guys later. See you in the next review.